Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and on this Monday afternoon, I'm joined by Kevin Graham, who is dialing in all the way from Stirlingshire, I think, Kev, is where you live.
Stirling, St Ninians, the People's Republic of St Ninians.
Okay, doke. I'll take your word for that. Plenty to discuss, as always. Over the weekend, with no games, Kev, I was, Saturday, Sunday, thinking to myself, we should do something because it's an awful long time not to talk about Celtic, but we'll catch up this Monday afternoon. The tagline, as McGregor pens a new deal, are Celtic about to flex their financial muscle? They've been doing it in an understated way by securing the signatures of the likes of Callum McGregor and Kyogo and Maeda, Kev. But you do get the sense that there's something rumbling under the surface, that we are about to start signing up quite a few of our targets. Do you get the same sense?
Two things. First, it's interesting that you actually say that we're missing Celtic. I re-siliconed my shower on Saturday.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's what we do
Delighted with that.
When there's no football on. I've been having dreams about Harry Kewell. Is that normal?
It's natural. That's natural.
Is that natural to have dreams about Harry Kewell? Are you really a Celtic fan if you didn't have dreams about Harry Kewell? I do not know. And I didn't ken Callum McGregor had penned a new deal because I just finished my work 5 minutes ago.
Brilliant. See what you learn when you come on to Acsom.
So you'll need to actually tell me what is the McGregor deal?
The McGregor deal, let's start off with it. Let's kick off with Captain Callum McGregor. He's just signed a new 5-year deal. It's going to keep him to the Celtic until the summer of 2028. Now, this is a player we've obviously spoken long and hard about him over the years. We'll kick off with some positive news about Callum McGregor. And he's a guy who has been at Celtic since he was 9 years of age. He's now been at the club for 20 years. Kev, that is astonishing. He's been at the club for 20 years. At the moment, I say at the moment because I don't think he's going to stop. He's won 20 trophies at Celtic. He's in that, the highest part of the list where it's guys like Billy McNeil, Bobby Lennox and Scott Brown, and you've got Callum McGregor and Jamesy Forrest up there as well. And that includes a world record 5 domestic trebles. No one else has won 5 domestic trebles in world football, Kev. 420 appearances, 62 goals. And the point I make with that is if he continues on his current average, which is around 47 appearances a season, and he completes his 5-year deal, he will be right up there behind the likes of Billy McNeil, Paul McStay, Roy Aitken and Danny McGreen, aged 35. I mean, people talk about legendary status, greatest ever Celtic 11s, you get all that. Callum McGregor is a modern day Celtic icon. He's a great, and he's taken to this captaincy like a fish to water. What do you see the changes in terms of changes? We've seen him improving under Brendan Rodgers last time round. What do you see in terms of his development under Brendan second time round?
I think he's probably improved as a player. Maybe not a player. He's probably improved as a person since the last time, since Brendan's been here. And what I mean by that, not that he was a BAM previously. What I'm actually meaning is he's probably developed with the fact is he's one of the biggest figures in the dressing room now. He's probably the biggest figure in the dressing room now since Scott Brown left. And there's a lot of big figures in that dressing room. You just have to have a look at the Greg Taylor stuff that he does, the Joe Hart. There's a lot of big figures. So he's probably developed as a captain, as a football person. And usually, see, when a manager comes in, he usually likes to sign a player that actually gets his ethos, gets what he's trying to actually do to bring to the club. So you have a look back at it. First player that Rodgers signed, that thing with that was probably Sinclair. Sinclair knew him, so you got him into the club, and he was Rodgers' pet, but never call Brian McClair anybody's pet or he'll absolutely
spy.
Aye, spy. So I don't think Rodgers needs to do this time because he's got Callum there. He's got James Forrest there. He's got guys that have worked with him before. So he's gone, they know what I expect. And I didn't need to bring in my own man to actually try and do this. So I think that's what Callum will be for him. It's great that he signed a 5-year deal. That means he's going to be here for virtually all his career. We will be here for all his career with that. I think one of the really interesting things, we don't really know how Rodgers is going to play. we're basing it on what he previously done with a previous set of troops. And he's got a complete and utterly different set of troops this time. And it will be interesting to see what he is going to do. But McGregor's going to be a massive, massive part of that. And I think Brendan Rodgers is getting a better player and a better person.
I'd agree with that.
Than the one that he left. And a better person's probably the wrong sort of phrasing to use, but a more rounded person, again, what I mean, he's developed. There's been a personal growth in Callum McGregor, as well as a physical and performance growth in Callum McGregor. So that he's getting a completely better, all-rounded, better human specimen.
Yeah, excellent. I think Brendan's getting the best version of Callum McGregor. You think about him prior to the captaincy being bestowed upon him by Ange Postecoglou. But he took that, and you look through that 2-season period. In both seasons, Kev, he's had serious injury. He's lost quite a bit of football within the 2 seasons. And he would have lost a lot more had he not been prepared to put on the face mask that some Scottish pundits said had to be tested, i.e. go and injure him again. He's got a serious injury to his face and going hard on him, bizarrely enough. And despite all of that, he came through. He's won 5 trophies out of 6 as a captain, which is an astonishing record. I was also looking at if he continued in this vein in terms of the appearances, and there's no signs that he won't. There's absolutely no signs that he won't, Kev, because you look at the consistency of Callum McGregor over the 9 seasons that he's been a first-team regular. That's going to continue. If he continues, by the age of 35, only one person will have made more appearances for Celtic in the history of the club, and that's Billy McNeill. That's astonishing. And at 35, because of the type of player that Callum is, you sometimes think, right, you know, the amount of games that he's played, the amount of running, the amount of work, the work rate's exceptional in Callum McGregor. It might be at the end of his kind of like career at that stage. But then you look at Scott Brown. Scott Brown was still playing at 36. You know, Aidan McGeady was playing at 37 until he hung his boots. I think he's hung his boots up this pre-season. He's possibly still looking for a new deal elsewhere, but he's certainly not going to be at Hibs. So he might get another year out of that. You know, he might get another year out of his deal as well. So I think that McGregor has, like you say, all the knowledge of playing under Brendan Rodgers. How much different will we play compared to Brendan Rodgers' first tenure? It all comes down to personnel. It all comes down to personnel. Of course it does. We'll be talking about that top you're wearing as well, Kev. You've been pulling out the retro classics over the last couple of weeks, and I do want to talk about that one as well. So Callum McGregor, 5-year deal. What do you make of it? In the comment section, is he going to become in fact, he's already one of the most decorated players. Is he going to become the most decorated player in the history of Celtic? That's an interesting one as well.
We are going to hope that, eh? We are really going to hope that. He's already more than a footnote in Celtic folklore. I mean, because he's going to stay for so long in this modern game, where we hope that the success actually continues for him. And yes, you might get a wee bit of background noise from me today, because obviously the schools are off and the nurseries are off, so I've got Wayne running about, and a wee blonde head might appear behind me every now and again, just asking to get a biscuit or something like that.
Getting into the Acsom. Listen,
don't worry about it. He talks more sense than me, actually. So
getting into Acsom early, mate. I was just thinking there about the most decorated Celtic player, and when I think of Billy McNeill, the way I remember how many trophies he won is it's 1 European Cup, 9 leagues. I'm going to say 6 League Cups, 7 Scottish Cups. It's 1967. That's how you remember Billy McNeill's trophy haul. And then you obviously can add them up. If you're as brilliant at maths as me, you can get a calculator out and add them up as well. So it's 23 trophies that he's got as a Celtic player, many of which, in fact, all of which would have been as a captain, because his early tenure at Celtic was not a successful one as a player. So, yeah, 23 trophies to go. If Callum's already won 20, you know, it's incredible what he can achieve. We know that in 5 years, there's 15 domestic trophies in that period. Who knows what's going to happen in that period? Certainly for the first 3 years of that period, he's going to be managed by Brendan Rodgers, because he's promised that, Kev. Brendan Rodgers has promised that to the Celtic support in a press conference. And the reason I say this is, in terms of the importance of these deals, what does it say about Brendan Rodgers? Because I remember even when the pre-season started and there was a wee bit of video footage of Kyogo and Maeda, and people were looking at that on social media saying, they don't look happy. Rodgers just came in and, it's a real statement of intent. There's 3 very important players already signed up, already bought into this Brendan Rodgers movement. Is that what it says to you?
It does. It does. I mean, I'm maybe sure that Callum would have signed a new deal anyway, no matter who the manager was, because he's that ingrained in it.
No matter. Even
no
if it was a third time for Neil Lennon, do you think he'd have signed one then? I think he's played his worst football. Listen, it's not a dig at Lenny. I think Callum McGregor played his worst football under Neil Lennon.
He did. He did play his worst football under Neil Lennon. Aye, right. Look, I'm sure the deal was probably easier because we have got a top-class manager back in Brendan Rodgers. And you have a look at it over the last couple of days and that, and you've seen the footage for the training ground and stuff like that, And it's like, I've got used to seeing Brendan Rodgers back at Celtic. And a couple of weeks ago, I hadn't got used to that. I couldn't even watch his press conference because I said, I'm not ready to do this shit. I'm not ready to do that. But then you see him on the training.
You never stopped speaking about him when he wasn't here, Kev. It was because of you that Acsom had a klaxon, a Rodgers klaxon. Because
a Brendan Rodgers klaxon, aye.
At least once every hour you mentioned him. You wanted him back.
That's because when I was looking back in my own mind at the standard I wanted for my football club, it was Brendan Rodgers standard. So that's how we had the Brendan Rodgers klaxon. And for me to actually go like that, I didn't really want him back. It's probably completely not like contrarian, but that's me. It completely doesn't make sense. But it's like, look, you see Rodgers there now. You hear what he says. He's a top quality coach. Any player's going to love working under him, and McGregor will be the same. McGregor had like his best period probably under him, then he's had a far greater period under Postecoglou. But as you say, Callum McGregor developed into the player we see today under Brendan Rodgers. He started maybe under Ronnie, started under Ronnie, went to Rodgers, went up a level. Like the majority of folk in that squad went up a level, and then had the wee flaky bit when Lenny came back, but and then he went to a different level when Postecoglou came back. It's about levels of a football club. It is about levels of a football club, and it's about what you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's have a look at this, right? One of our biggest criticisms about Neil Lennon coming back in was the steady erosion of what was set up before.
Yeah.
And now we're 2 years back to try to get up to the level we were before Brendan actually left in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably got there in a different way because Postecoglou and Rodgers are not the same person. They're going to have different standards, but their standards that are going to be high, are really, really going to be high. And Brendan's already says that. Rodgers has only worked with elite football clubs. Like when that was the one thing I says when he came the first time, he's only worked with elite football clubs. And that's the standard that he actually wants. Like the wee things, like when they were travelling away to the away games, everything staying overnight. But when they walked into a dining hall, the players didn't need to have to think where their chicken was. The chicken was on the left-hand side in the first table because everything was done exactly the same.
The away days in Europe, Kev, was it also a case where he stopped? Yeah, you know how corporate fans were often offered the chance to go on the same flight as the team. I think, did Rodgers stop that? Someone in the comments might have the funds to be travelling on these flights, Kev. But I'm pretty sure I heard even that, so that they could be focused on the task in hand. That kind of thing stopped as well.
I knew somebody who worked at a hotel where the Celtic team used to stop going when they were going to an away day. And he should have seen the list of things that were faxed to this hotel of what had to be in place The players couldn't be standing about. They couldn't be waiting. They couldn't be like, when they came down for their dinner, they had to know where every single thing. The room had to be set up a certain way. They had to sit in a certain place. When everything was planned to the minute detail. So that's, you think that's maybe a bit anal or something like that, but it's how these elite football clubs work. I mean, I sometimes wonder, see, when you see these players going away in the summer, like to Ibiza and that, they're probably looking for somebody for the club to turn up with their passport and check in for them, because they probably haven't got a clue how to do it, because they didn't need to do it.
That's the thing. We're going to be talking about the fact that we're flying off to Portugal, and everything is on a schedule, Kev, like you say. Everything's looked after for you as a professional footballer, and then there's another level. There's another level that those standards are taken to at the elite clubs. And as you say, the experience that Brennan had prior to coming to Celtic first time round, he was implementing a lot of these processes during his first tenure at Celtic. Some of them were clearly ripped up since he departed. I think Ange has implemented things in a different way. And now Rodgers, even when he's talking about the pre-season, and we're going to be talking about this as well, he's talking about taking the players to a different level of fitness to play his brand of football. So I'm finding all this very interesting. Ange Postecoglou, interestingly enough, because I'm pretty sure he will continually be brought up, especially whilst there's a rumour of a friend against Spurs is doing his first presser, I believe, at 1 o'clock or thereabouts. So it'll be interesting to hear if anyone asks him about his departure. I'm not quite sure if the English media are interested in his departure from Celtic, but he will be facing the media at 1 o'clock. Now, Patrick Harold is coming on the YouTube. Welcome to the channel. If anybody wants to comment on a Celtic State of Mind's live streams, then subscribe to the channel. It allows you to then make your comments, and we will discuss them, throw them at Kevin and I. And we obviously have a list of things we want to chat about, but the floor is open for you to make your suggestions. Afternoon, comrades. Great to see Callum McGregor signing a new deal. And obviously people like Kev hadn't even heard. He was so busy going about his business this morning that he has found that out on a Celtic State of Mind. Now, we will be talking as well about Jota's farewell video, Kev. We've got to talk about that as well. Xander Mack, there's a mystical fog floating around Celtic Park. Will we see that quotation on a wall somewhere at Celtic Park? Is it a mystical foggy Jew? Asks Ridiculizer as well. And Paddy Lavery comes in also. Afternoon all, great to see you, Paddy. Got to say, I enjoyed Jota's farewell interview. And these are the things over the weekend, obviously tapping in and out of the old phone, Kev, but making sure that it's not going to be glued to my hand for obvious reasons, but just to make sure if anything Celtic related happens, you know about it. And a few people shared in the WhatsApp group this video of Jota saying his kind of farewell to Celtic. And this is a thing, I'd seen a lot of people on the social saying, you know, where's the Jota farewell comments? Where's the Ange farewell comments? And people were expecting it. Is that something you expect from departing icons or heroes these days?
I never expect anything for anybody anymore, so I didn't get disappointed. But obviously, it's common practice nowadays for a player to go, "Oh, thanks for your time," and it's usually a wee 150 character type out on Instagram or whatever social network that they're actually using. But to have a hostage video was great. I mean, that's when it first opened up. I'm going, oh, what's going on here? This is a bit Salman Rushdie like. And as he's sitting there looking like, I just picture Aladdin when he's sitting there.
His hair's looking fine. His hair is looking fine. The volume has returned to Jota's Fosh. I mean, listen, that is the modern day. It really is. And obviously, I said last week, I've not done it yet.
And it was a it was a 2-camera setup as well.
It was very impressive.
It just wasn't looking into an iPhone. It was like...
That's true. It was very impressive, all edited in. And then obviously the cutaways to various wee bits of action and stuff, like he's celebrating. I think it was after the Dundee United game. Yeah, do we expect that kind of thing from players? Well, you know what, right? With the advent of social media, the use of social media, the multi-platforms that are now available, and footballers have dived right into that. And I can see both sides of it, Kev, right? On the one side, a couple of seasons ago said, you know, Ange Postecoglou should ban our players for using social media because some of them were misusing it. You know, Lee Griffiths, for example, that was a conversation. And then you got guys like Chris Jullien, on a flight to go and sign for somebody else. Very disrespectful, I felt, to Celtic fans and Celtic as a club. And then that transfer fell through, you'll remember. So it can be misused, but also you think to yourself, in this day when footballers seem untouchable, you can't just go up to Barrowfield. You can't just, catch a player making his way from Celtic Park to the training ground these days as easily as you used to back in the day. It is a way of players engaging with fans, Kev. So I can see both sides of it. And it's a very fine balance. But Jota came out, he made his video. People have certain bits of it that they liked the most. I liked the fact that he said it was one of the most beautiful stories ever, Jota's relationship with Celtic. There's a mystical fog flowing around Celtic Park. There used to be a mystical something else flowing around the terraces in the days of the jungle, we remember, Kev.
That mystical fog is still above the standing section.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That
mystical fog is still there, aye.
Right, aye. So is it just a quagmire of various different odours, etc., emanating from a certain section of the stadium?
Yes,
and another thing I liked was a nice wee Beyonce. Did you get that? We were crazy. We were definitely crazy in love. Liked a bit of that.
I got that.
But it's put a smile on your face. No hard feelings, Joe. He goes away. We wish him the best.
No, we've got no hard feelings, and we're going to be the best girlfriend that he'll ever have, eh?
His ex-birds are thinking, dearie me. Oh, Jota.
He would have been getting some amount of texts from his exes.
I'm sure there's a few. But that takes us on to the song. I mean, obviously, it emanated from the terracing, right? I still call it terracing because we're kind of old school, the age that we're at, Kev. And that whole story around Ellie Dixon playing it, randomly, or was it Patrick Kilty's show on the radio? Next thing you know, she does an acoustic version on her YouTube. She's invited to Celtic to do the video for Sky Sports with Big Bems, friend of the show, Big Bems. It just grew arms and legs. I mean, we loved this guy. He really was a hero. But we also know that if anybody bids £25 million for anything at Celtic Park, we're going to have to consider it. I think there's going to be times in the future, Kev, where we will be talking on this show about stadium rights, for example, right? So you can imagine, we're going to talk about that jersey you've got on there, but you can imagine back in the day.
The stadium lights, right? The stadium lights.
Rights, no lights.
Rights. Oh, I thought you were talking about the lights.
We can talk about the lights as well.
No, well, I may as well talk about the lights now because you've already led me down that path, or I've led myself down that path. Basically, the lights were put in because they had to upgrade the floodlights.
Yeah.
So it was a job lot. We didn't say we're putting in disco lights, just that this company came in and went, well, when we're replacing that, we can put in this system that all the rest of the clubs are getting.
Upgrading it.
You'll be as well doing it. So I hate it when we get slagged about the disco lights. And the folk that slag about the disco lights are no aimed at them. They're no, like, I'm sure the same folk that slag the disco lights love walk-ins in the boxing. That's all it is. It's just another facet of entertainment.
Box office. Of course it is. And of course, with regards to the lighting system as well, Bio, the introduction of Bio as a sign.
Brilliant. It was the best. It was the best part ever about
iconic. Bio. It was iconic. No, you're right. I did say the rights, the naming rights. Because you're wearing a Celtic top there. You wore an absolute belter of an iconic now jersey, a cult iconic jersey last week. And going through all the old Celtic views and the letter pages and all that kind of stuff, people weren't happy, of course, when the badge was added, the Celtic crest was added to the jersey. Just going further back to that, Celtic obviously have been with Umbro since the 1930s, Kev. And it was a relationship that we had, right, for 70 years as a strip manufacturer. But as you can imagine, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, there was no such, even 60s, there was no such a thing as a replica market. So anybody could produce a green and white hooped jersey, and there was nothing to distinguish that between Umbro, Admiral, or whatever. And what actually happened was Admiral started producing green and white Celtic jerseys, even though they didn't have a deal with Celtic. Nothing could be done about it. And that's why Umbro stuck their crest on the hoops, 1970s, early 70s. That's the only reason they put it on. And then through the sign of the times, Celtic decided to put the crest on the jersey, and there was uproar at that. And then obviously we decided to put a sponsor on the jersey, not the first Scottish club to do so. There was uproar about that as well. And eventually, we will, I guess, sell the stadium naming rights if the price is right. And that's what I'm getting at. If the price is right, as a club, Celtic need to consider it, because we're in a scenario, Kev, where our income streams are limited in Scottish football. So when somebody offers you 25 million or 27 is the rumoured fee million for Jota, you've got to consider it. You've got to accept it, haven't you?
Definitely. And you look at the stadium. I'm surprised the stadium hasn't been renamed by now. I think it's one of these things that the club are maybe loath to do it because of the potential backlash that they could get, or maybe nobody's just offered enough money. I think, no, I've actually says that out loud. That's probably the case. Somebody just hasn't offered enough money to actually get the stadium naming rights. You look at Newcastle, they last week sell the name of their stadium, or no, it was a shirt sponsorship.
Right.
Went from £7 million to £25 million a season.
Mm-hmm.
For a Saudi-owned fund who own them. So basically, it's just a way around financial fair play. They're just going, the deals went up from £7 million a season to £25 million a season, but the same company own them anyway. It's absolutely ludicrous. You're right, though. If somebody came and offered Celtic £2 million, £3 million, I don't know what the naming rights are worth. What do you actually get for the naming rights? It's like McDonald's sponsoring the World Cup. They get nothing back for it. I mean, we spoke with a gentleman who was involved in the sponsorship game, and he says that you get nothing for sponsoring anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you get maybe named on a Champions League night. Welcome to.
It's just brand awareness. It's increasing
welcome
the
to the
exposure of the
Thunderbird
brand.
Celtic Park, or whatever it's going to be called. Or...
Thunderbird, are you talking about cider?
Aye.
You talking about 2 litre bottles of cider? Kev,
Aye,
that is a
like,
throwback.
I mean, welcome to the welcome to the Financial Institute Stadium here on Champions League night, or the
Would you ever
Americans
call
are
it? Would you ever call it whatever it was going to be named? Because I mean, there's certain stadiums that have had various names as a result of that. You're still going to go with the traditional name, aren't you? You always will. You always will.
You're always going to go with Parkers, aren't you?
And Celtic will always call it Paradise. That's just the way it is. They might have to change that, actually. But we are keen to get your thoughts on all things Celtic. We're talking about, financial capabilities. Celtic are booming financially, going by the reports last week that we spoke about. And we're asking the question here, are we about to flex the financial muscle? And if we do, what's that going to look like on the park? David Boyle, I'm hoping that we sign 2 to 3 squad players ready for the Champions League to add to the potential of Odenholm and Tilio. Tilio, of course, provided his first press conference to the fan media outlets last week, and I thought Laura was fantastic opening the press conference last week on Friday, Kev. Fantastic that she was able to get that opportunity, and Tilio came across really, really well. But the one thing that interested me in the WhatsApp group from yourself, Kev, is how much you've fallen, not just for the player, but for that new jersey that he was wearing. So we'll be talking about the financial muscle. But that Umbro jersey you're wearing right now, I mean, what's going on? Have you just found a wee compartment in your wardrobe in the last few weeks with all your Celtic gear?
I found a stash of them that I had the note that I knew that I had, but I couldn't remember where I'd put them. So I'm just going to entertain, because it is entertainment. This I'm just going to entertain the Acsom listeners by wearing a different one each week.
Brilliant.
Until I put my money where my mouth is and buy the new one.
So this is
or if Santa wants to come early and buy me the new one and give me the new one, sponsorless, of course, then I'll be quite happy. But I will back up my view on that jersey by buying it or getting it as a present.
I'm thinking, and this is off the cuff because I never knew you were going to wear that. Obviously, I'm sure the advertising slogan was green and silverware. I'm sure it was green and silverware. That's what it was on the back of the programme.
This is Henrik Larsson 2004 Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
If you wear this jersey, that's what it should remind every Celtic fan. That's it. I mean, I'm sure
maybe you should say fan of every Celtic fan.
Right, okay.
Simply because that'll be easily cut, Kev, and it could be used against you on a social media platform sometime in the future.
I'm no
because that's what happens.
I can, but it's just accent.
It is your
I'm
vernacular,
Norwegian.
of course it is.
I'm Norwegian.
Brilliant. Hope Cal Mac will go on coaching with the club afterwards, because he has the brain for it and experience for the younger players. He absolutely does. He absolutely does. And I think that Callum McGregor is the type of person. It's difficult to say. You really never know. Some of the greatest players in the world aren't coaches, but you look at some of the leadership qualities that he has. I always looked at that in someone like Roy Aitken, for example, Kevin, whereby I always felt that at some point after his playing days were over, he would be a Celtic manager. I thought he was a stick-on as a Celtic manager, but that was in a more of a kind of traditional time where it was always a Celtic player who became the manager.
Yes, as you say, that's following a tradition. You see Billy McNeil. So when we're growing up, Paul, there's only a couple of years between us. When we're growing up, you go like, well, who's the next Billy McNeil? It's Big Roy, ain't it? He's just going to go on and have a managerial career and end up Celtic manager. You could probably say it was written in the stars for Tommy as well. Tommy Burns was probably, as soon as he became a manager and got a modicum of success with Kilmarnock, he was always going to be Celtic manager at one point. And it did maybe come a wee bit too early for him, but we've all got fond memories of Tommy's team, and we've spent hours and hours and hours talking about how great Tommy's side were. I mean, Tommy's side is more fondly remembered than some sides that have actually won Tim Potts for us. Get what I mean, eh? So
yeah.
aye.
No, you're right, and it's because of the style of football that they played. And we're going to be talking about the style of Brendan's team, but we're asking, if we're going to be flexing our financial muscle, whereabout is it going to be happening on the park? Jungle Lion. Hopefully, Celtic are doing these deals first and getting them out of the way for the 3 or 4 new signings needed for a tilt at the Champions League. I'm going to ask you, Kevin. We've obviously brought into Intilio and Home. Very impressive. You look at them, obviously bags and bags of potential. They're coming in at a certain age. They've been identified prior to Brendan Rodgers coming to the club, but he spoke about being happy with the guys that are coming in. And I'm going to ask you the question, right? Do you expect us to spend big this summer? I don't mean on an individual player, but are we bringing in 4 or 5? Are we bringing in 3 or 4? How many more bodies do you think we'll bring in this pre-season? And where?
We've brought in 2 already. So let's have a look at this. You bring in 2 already. If you look at the more learned sites who believe that they're in the know, we're seemingly looking at a goalie, a left back, and another 2 midfielders. The 2 midfielders is interesting for me because I think we're top heavy in midfield. But if, for example, Moyes retired, David Turnbull might leave because he's in the final year of his contract, and there could be another actually leave. So if you bring in, we've already brought in Odin. If you bring in another 2, that just picks your complement back up. If 3 midfielders leave. You've actually got that again. It probably depends how many midfielders Rodgers is going to play with. A goalie's an interesting one. I mean, by all intents and purposes, at the moment, Seagrass hasn't worked, and there is a wee rumour that he wants to move to Australia to be with his partner, which is fine. That's life choices that he's got to make. I'm sure he'll maybe get a club in Australia, but Joe Hart's in the last year of his contract. Look, Hart's not going to sign another deal with us. He's going to go back down to England and do whatever he wants to do down there. I think there was a wee rumour that he was going to go back down to his first club. Was it Mansfield?
Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury. That's where he wants to maybe end up playing. He's not going to sign. So as it stands at the moment, our first choice goalkeeper is in the last year of his contract. So do we wait to sort that problem next summer, or do we sort it this summer? And I think that will be interesting. I think we'll sort it this summer and maybe give Hart good competition for that jersey. I still expect Hart to be our first choice, though.
Well,
I do still expect Hart to be our first choice.
I want to speak about that particular position because obviously there's been a bit of movement over the summer already in relation to goalkeepers, and everybody I ask always has that in their response. We need to strengthen the goalkeeper department. Left back gets a mention. Centre half, centre forward. I mean, I'm going to give you my kind of view on that as well. Joe Hamilton is tuning in from a very hot Austria. Hail, hail, says Joe. Great to see you, Joe. Where are you watching A Celtic State of Mind from this afternoon on this Monday afternoon? Where are you watching it from? It's always great to hear. Keith Oakton is watching from a very wet Plymouth, and it is battering down with the rain here in Dalkeith as well. Jungle Lion, who we hope at some point will be hosting A Celtic State of Mind in his wee gang hut, or his big gang hut in Ireland. Let's hope it happens someday. 3 years gone today. Jack Charlton gave us Irish some sessions. I bet he did. I remember getting right into supporting the Irish team under Jack Charlton, in actual fact, because it was in 1988 European Championships, Kev. That was what really hooked me on the fact that we had Pat Bonner in goals, obviously, but we also had guys like Mick McCarthy playing, Chris Morris were playing. And that shows you how Jack Charlton went about his business. Cornishman, Chris Morris playing at right back. Mick McCarthy, Barnsley born Mick McCarthy playing at centre half. He was able to get a team together, regardless of whether or not they were born in Ireland. But he would find some kind of familial link, be that an Irish granny. Tony Cascarino wasn't Irish, didn't even have an Irish granny, played for a while. He was a top goal scorer, I think. You can correct me, Jungle Lion. And then he wrote in his autobiography that he had faked the documents, so he should never have been capped. Does you hear that story? He should never have been capped by Ireland.
I've actually read his autobiography.
It's a good book, actually.
As a decent autobiography from a footballer, anyway. But one of the bits that sticks out to me is like Andy Townsend putting on the Wolf Tones on the bus going to games. That bit always. And anytime I sometimes have the unfortunate pleasure of listening to Andy Townsend co-commentating now on some far-flung channels that I seem to watch football on, that seem to just appear on my telly every now and again. And I just picture Andy Townsend going, I'm putting on the Wolf Tones as they're going to the stadium.
He's a player I'd have loved to have signed for Celtic. I've got to say. Andy Townsend.
See, at that point, Paul, you would... guys our age, we would be absolutely lying to actually say that we wouldn't have wanted half that Irish team playing.
Oh, you're right. Bernie Slavin was another one. I spoke about it last week.
Guys like that.
Ronnie Whelan.
We would have wanted all of them. We wanted all of them playing for Celtic.
We did. And, I got proper, caught up in it, I've got to say. And then, then you had the World Cup 1990 in Italy, and it was another brilliant tournament for the Ireland team as well. So, yes, thoughts with Big Jack's friends and family today on the 3rd anniversary of his passing. And we've also got Mickey Boy 80, Jota's goodbye and thank you message, arguably the most thoughtful ever. He did come across genuine. You've got to give him that, Kev. You've got to give him that. Right, we'll start off with a goalkeeper then. If we are going to be flexing our financial muscle, which we undoubtedly have, goalkeeper, I'm not convinced. And I'll tell you why, Kev. And I'm open to debate and argument and disagreement and all this kind of thing. So we've got Joe Hart. And in this particular transfer window in this summer, we have torn up Barkas's contract. It's been a very expensive flop. It's not worked out. I'm sure he'll go away and flourish for the rest of his career, get back into the Greek national side and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure he will. This didn't work out at Celtic, and that's what happens. I think part of that was the curse of that pandemic season, Kev, whereby new guys were coming in. They weren't fully getting integrated with their teammates. Even the city, and I don't mean, he knows his city, he's going to be a good manager. But coming to a new club, in a new city, coming to a new country, and immersing yourself in the culture of that, even going for meals with players and, your partners would become friendly with other. All of that was lost. These guys like a Yeti and that, staying in hotels, very isolated. I think we need to, maybe with hindsight, it's difficult to speak about it at the time. With hindsight, take that into consideration. That's maybe what affected these guys. Maybe more than some of the domestic guys who were already there, Kev. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think it's fair to say, and also as well, I think as an organisation, Celtic failed the COVID season. I think there was quite a few things that they actually got wrong that when you look back on hindsight, I spoke about an erosion of standards, and I think that was heightened and quickened during the COVID season. Just because of maybe restrictions that were put in that we couldn't do certain things. You had to travel on 2 buses, this and that. I don't think the club coped with it well. Whereas you can maybe point to other organisations coping with it well or just not getting caught.
There is that. No, I don't think we cope with it well. And some of these things were very difficult to cope with or manage. Bringing in new players and integrate them into the squad, that was virtually impossible.
I mean, you can go back. It's on YouTube. We were very, very happy with the transfer window going into that COVID season, and we are signing Shane Duffy. We were over the moon that we had signed Shane Duffy. We had got a Greek international goalkeeper. We had got Albion Ayeti. Now, Albion Ayeti's Postacoglu's first season scored against Celta Vigo in the Europa League.
Mm-hmm.
So we got guys that potentially.
Was it Betis?
Was it Real Betis? Aye, it was Real Betis. Aye. I mean, we got guys with potential to. They ticked a lot of the boxes that Celtic look for, but circumstances meant that every one of them. It was
Shane
a terrible.
Duffy. Kev, Shane Duffy.
Aye.
Right.
Every
talking
one
about Irish internationals, he comes in, you think, yes, he'll do the job.
Every one of them ticked the box that Celtic look for. Maybe up and coming, Saws as a step up, maybe a wee bit damaged goods. A guy looking to resurrect his career at the club, that his boyhood club. Duffy coming up here to win 10 in a row. Well, he would have went, I'm going to jump at that. But he came into an absolutely Doug's dinner of a club. A club who couldn't control what was going on round about it, couldn't control what was going on inside it with certain factions in the dressing room, which have now come out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, it was an absolute mess. So I know Neil Lennon gets a lot of the blame, and maybe rightly so, but I think as an organisation, we didn't handle it. We didn't get the signings right. We didn't bed them in right. We didn't do a lot of things right that season. But that's not to necessarily say that these boys are bad players. It just didn't work out for them. We had an absolutely horrendous window where every signing we had completely failed.
Yeah, and the other one, of course, is Diego Laxalt, who came with, World Cup, team of the World Cup whilst playing for Uruguay under his belt, signing him from AC Milan. And I remember in his first game, he looked really, really useful. His first European game for us, he played really, really well. But his performances fell off the edge of a cliff. And, let's not even go there. So Neil Lennon loses his job. Peter Lawwell, probably the plan would have been to move from CEO to another position at the club. He loses his job. A lot of the players mentioned lost their Celtic career out of it. Duffy, Ayeti and Barkas. But yeah, we've moved on a great deal since then, and we're hoping for a better transfer window, that's for sure. And we've got Weebree. I'm concerned about the silence around Hatate. Does anyone else feel the same? Greetings from Essex. Welcome to the conversation, Weebree and Stephen Donnelly. Good news on the McGregor, a true Celtic man. Would be nice to see some new faces, although I am sure it will come. We have obviously brought in a couple, but what we're talking about now is where else do we need to strengthen? And I'm talking about goalkeepers. So I'm looking at Joe Hart, and, I think he's probably divided opinion since he came into the club, Kev. You just need to go on some of the previous Acsom bulletins and you'll hear our thoughts on it as well. And people are saying we need to strengthen the goalkeeper in that department. Barkas is gone. That's what took us back to the pandemic season there. Hazard's about to sign for Plymouth Argyle. 150 grand we're going to get back for him. And apparently we've re-signed Scott Bain on a 3-year deal. That was I don't think it's been announced by the club yet, but that was last season. So what do we have? We've got Joe Hart, Benji Siegrist, and Scott Bain. Toby Uwulayemi, he's not been getting a mention. I don't know if he's going to go back out on loan. So we've got 3 goalkeepers in the first team. Do you need a fourth? Is the first question you're asking there, I would suggest, Kevin. If you do, are you going to buy somebody that you think is a first pick, or are you going to buy somebody to challenge Joe Hart? And with regards to Hart, I would suggest that what he's done since he came to the club is exactly what you would expect of a player of that stature. I think pound for pound, he's been a phenomenal signing. One of Angie's best signings, Kev, over the piece for the 2 seasons at that price, £1 million for Spurs. What he's brought, not just in performances, but what you were talking about with Callum McGregor, what he brings to the dressing room and to the training pitch and all that, is sometimes you can't put a value on that. I think he's still going to be the first choice this season. I think that under Brendan Rodgers, although we do play out from the back, there's going to be less onus on him having the ball at his feet, Kev. And when he does, you're not looking just for a 12-yard pass to Starfelt or Carter Vickers. You're probably looking to widen the pass into maybe the fullbacks or even the wingers. And I reckon that he's going to have his swan song this season. If we do sign a goalie, then he'll be pushing for the jersey very much in the way that we expected Siegrist to last season. And if we do bring in a Siegrist-style signing, it might signal the end of Siegrist's time at Celtic. That's my take on it. I don't think we're going to go out there and buy a big-name goalkeeper.
We need to buy a goalkeeper who will push Joe Hart. At the moment, I don't think that's there. For various reasons, we all know the limitations of Scott Bain. By the looks of things, that Siegrist hasn't worked for whatever reason. He didn't get many chances last year. He didn't get many chances last year. There is a wee rumour that his head's maybe been turned with things happening in his personal life. So the club will be dealing with that. The club will be dealing with that internally, and it's not for us to comment on that until anything actually happens. But I do think we need a keeper to push Joe Hart. Keepers are a funny breed, eh? They know that they'll maybe be coming in to actually challenge somebody. They know that they might not get a lot of game time. So we might be looking to bring in a youngish goalkeeper to bed in for maybe 6-7 months and replace Hart next season. It's quite difficult. I mean, we all want. I mean, every position that we've got is up for grabs, but it's very difficult to upgrade to what you've actually got there with the money that we've got to spend and with players that will actually come to Scotland. So the club will know what goalkeepers are available and what goalkeepers can actually come to Celtic, and if they can push Joe Hart or not. But it does need addressed mainly down to Joe Hart's contract situation. The fact that he's got a year's left and he's 36 now. And the chances are this is his final year at the club. So we've got to have a look at bringing in a goalkeeper, either to challenge him this season or to be our first choice goalkeeper next season. Toby Ayalome is guaranteed he's going back out on loan. He actually needs games. I don't think our development of players has got any better since the B team came into place. I mean, he went to Cork City, and I know he got injured quite early, so I think you'll see him going on loan to probably a lower league English side, like we done with, who was the guy that played 100 games for Tranmere Rovers? Ross Doohan.
He's back in Scottish football, isn't
he? He's back up. You'll probably see that. But I think we will sign a goalkeeper, just mainly down to Hart's situation. Rather than anything. I think if we had a decent backup for Hart, if we had a decent succession plan in there, we wouldn't be looking at a goalkeeper. But I think that's not there. I think there is a gap in quality between Hart and the rest of them. And with Siegrist, I do think his head's out the door.
Well, if you were to look at Scottish football at that point, Kev, and say, right, who do you bring in? If you were taking a goalkeeper from Scottish football, it would have been Siegrist. And we brought him in, and it's not worked out for two reasons, obviously, one of them being the injury as well. And that resulted in him playing 2 games. Now, it looked as though he was going to be Angie's goalkeeper in the League Cup. He got injured after the second game. He might have ended up in a final. That was the plan for Siegrist. It didn't work out. Does he get another throw of the dice next season? We will wait and see. Maybe Brendan Rodgers has got somebody up his sleeve already, Kev. But I'm going to say, the market that he's in as well, he will know some up-and-coming potential that's coming through in English football. And we've also got Robert Hammond saying Brendan getting his own house in order first, seeing who's on board before bringing his own in, and that's completely understandable as well. Here's the thing, Colin Jordan. Sorry, on you go, Kev.
There will be, he says he's getting his house in order. There will be a list of players who were linked, who were scouted to be presented to Postecoglou.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still the players that will be getting presented. And it's up to Rodgers now where he actually wants to strengthen, which may be different for Postecoglou. But I don't think it's going to be like too far away from where Postecoglou reckoned that we needed strengthened anyway. And where we can strengthen with top targets. Because there's no point going out and signing a goalkeeper if it's your third on your list.
No, just filling
No,
the
you
gap.
want your you want your top one. There's no point signing a left back unless he's top of the list, because you've got enough cover in that there already. There's no point signing a certain midfielder which is no better than Atati and is top of your list. There's no point. So this is where, I mean, I did write on the blog. It's not a number game that we need anymore. It's a quality game that we actually need. And if your first choice is not willing to come, you move on.
The thing with
you didn't move on to another target. You didn't start going down until you're getting offered Joseph Malumbu as a free transfer on the 31st of August.
well, that's the reason why we've got a Yeti, because the top target was Tony. We know that, and that's we've gone down a few levels to get a Yeti, and it didn't work out. And I think Colin Jordan raises a point. Afternoon, Acsom. Good afternoon to you as well, Colin. I think McGregor is a modern day Paul McStay. Said it since Rodgers first did it at the club. I'm going to throw something in here, Kev, and I want you to think about what I'm saying, right? Because Paul McStay is an absolute god. He's a godlike genius. If Acsom had an award ceremony, he would win the Godlike Genius Award at the first award ceremony. Paul McStay, the maestro, loved him, absolutely idolised him when I was growing up as a Celtic fan. He's a player I've never met or spoken to Paul McStay. Would love to someday. And I'm going to say that there's certainly one element of Callum McGregor's ability at Celtic. There's one facet of his game that I think is better than Paul McStay's, and that's the captaincy, Kev. I thought Paul McStay, he was an example of a leader. Of course he wasn't, but he led by example. He didn't, I didn't ever see him doing what Roy Aitken did in the 1985 Scottish Cup final, where he's grabbed the team and dragged us over the line in that kind of respect. And it's no disrespect to Paul McStay, because he's up there. He's almost unparalleled in terms of my Celtic supporting life. But I think McGregor's a better captain, Kev. I do. I mean, there's examples of it in Angie's first season where he's grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. He's refused to get beat, and he's dragged the team over the line almost by himself. There was the occasion against Motherwell where we're winning 2-0. Motherwell pull a goal back, you'll remember, and then there's a breakaway near the end of the game, and McGregor takes a red card for it. Just to pull them down, he takes a red card. And I remember during the week there, I saw Kaká's goal for AC Milan. You remember, 94th minute, I think, extra time over in the San Siro. Were you at that game? I think you were.
I was in the San
Siro
that night. Aye.
And you're watching it back, and you're just like, somebody take a booking or a red for that. Just take it, because it's the only way you're going to stop him. And McGregor did it.
It's one of the best goals I've ever seen scored against Celtic.
Oh, phenomenal! Who was muscled out in the centre circle? Somebody in midfield. That's where it started going wrong. He got turned in the centre of the park. He got muscled off the ball, and then that was it. The pressure was on after that. But you were there. Didn't you meet Kevin McCluskey over there that night?
I'd went with Kevin McCluskey. We had travelled on the same flight in the same supporters club. And what actually happened was, I mean, this was our mobile phones batteries were running out, and everybody had got split up, because some of them were in the Celtic end, and some of us were in a neutral section, which was opened, because what actually happened on the day in Milan, there was that many Celtic fans who put tickets that you could go to a bank and buy a ticket as long as you produced your passport.
Right.
So we all rocked up to the Italian version of the Royal Bank of Scotland with passports, and there was a wee guy sitting there, crabbit as anything, selling tickets for last 16 tie for a Champions League, when there's folk in there trying to sort out mortgages and stuff like that, and we're all sitting there, we're all standing there in the queue, half bloated, getting a ticket for a Champions League game, eh? And so there was like a neutral section that they opened, which was just basically full of Celtic fans, and so we all got lost, and we're walking out the ground, my mobile phone goes, and it came up Kevin McCluskey's brother's name. So I answered it, and it was actually Kevin. And he was going, "I'm lost. Where are you?" I says, "I'm standing looking at a big Borat sign." He went, "I'm standing underneath Borat." And he says I saved his life that night, because he had no way of getting back into Milan. So there you go.
So who did we play in Hungary where the Stirling bus left him there and he's still there? What happened that night? We need to ask him. We need to ask him. Kevin enjoys coming on for the match day coverage. So, as far as I know, the game in Portugal, we'll get onto that as well on Wednesday, isn't being televised anywhere, even on one of your magical TVs that you've got, Kev. It's not going to be screened by Celtic TV. That's the current state of play. I think we're all keen, even though it's a kind of meaningless bounce game, right? We're all really keen to watch any bit of football we can get at the moment. Any discussion about Paul McStay brings in Paul McStay love, basically, in the comments section. It is what it is, says McStay was my hero. Only Larson coming changed that. You can have more than one hero as well.
When you're going back to it, you look at what was McStay's best season. McStay's best season was the centenary season.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And in that centenary team, he didn't need to be the leader. He just had to play football.
Just play. I think of that midfield. The Tommy Burns midfield. You've got Paul McStay with all that experience. Yeah, by that time he had the injury. The injury happened. The injury that finished his career eventually happened under Liam Brady in an Irish game on an Irish tour in pre-season, and I think it was against Cork City. And I think Cork were maybe wearing that unbelievable West Germany-esque Adidas kit. Yes. Somebody in the comments may be able to tell me different. And Jerry McCabe was playing for Cork, and there's a tackle right down on the corner flag, and he gets done in by a player, and that was his ankle. That was the original ankle injury. He misses the first 3 months of the season. He comes back, never quite regains the McStay that we saw before. But there was flashes. But that midfield that Tommy Burns had, John Collins, who was an incredible operator for Celtic, and Phil O'Donnell. I remember when we brought in Phil O'Donnell, I thought to myself, what a midfield this is that we've got. And obviously that was supplemented by the likes of Peter the Pointer as well. He came in. He says he carried the hampers for them, but he came in. And McStay, like you say, by that point, he was carrying the weight, I think, of the captaincy. Billy McNeil spoke in one of his books, one of the later books, to say that he might have regretted giving McStay the captaincy. When he did, it might have been too much of a responsibility for him as well. I love it. Paul McStay, top class player, and Paul Byrne. Is it the Paul Byrne who scored 2 goals against Rangers?
No, I've asked him in the I've asked him in the comments before. It's no.
That's a shame. I love Rio Ferdinand's McStay story. Yes, of course, there was the Maestro game when Rio Ferdinand and Paul McStay got together to raise funds for charity, and Rio did that interview with Celtic TV as well. You mentioned a left-back, Kev. I'm looking at the Bernabe's debut season for Celtic. Came over, decent outlay for a 21-year-old at the time. He played 10 minutes of Champions League football and started 12 games domestically for Celtic. And he's another one that I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not he fits into Brendan Rodgers' style. I don't think he fitted into Ange Postecoglou's style. I wasn't impressed with him.
I don't think he done. But the fact that we're getting linked, as I say, I can only have a look at what these websites say, we're getting linked with. Well, they're looking at a left back. So that makes me think that they don't think whoever the coaching staff that were there previously, if they've been told you need to go and have a look for a left back, that maybe means they were having doubts about Bernabe. And what Rodgers is actually doing then, they're going, look, we've got a list of these left backs, do you fancy any of them? And Rodgers is probably going, no, I want to have a look at the 2 left backs that we've got there. So Bernabe now gets another chance because the last season's done, and there's a new sheriff in town. So Bernabe going, this is my chance to actually show different style of play. Maybe I didn't need to come inside. Maybe I didn't need to do this and that. So the left back one, unless it's a massive upgrade on Greg Taylor, I would see it's just a case of getting another body in, and maybe they'll be looking to actually get Bernabe out on loan, because it's very difficult. I mean, how much are you talking about spending? What left back? Is there a left back? There's plenty to be a left back out there. As Greg Taylor is better than Greg Taylor, but Greg Taylor's been one of your main players over the last 2 seasons, and not just with his performances, with his attitude, with the way that he is in the dressing room. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't keep playing a player because he's great crack in the dressing room, eh? But you need the guys about. That's what a lot of folk didn't understand. And I think it would be very difficult to improve on the Greg Taylor of the last 2 seasons in our price range unless you're getting a complete and utter finished article, which will not come to Scotland.
I think Brendan Rodgers will be looking for that, though. Just going
So
back
they
to your
are,
standards, Kev,
aye.
going back to that, and also going away for 4 years back to the EPL, and a lot of people anyway focus on that 4th season. The success he had in the first 3 seasons and the players that he was working with, again, he's going to be coming to Celtic, and he's maybe looking at some of these areas. I'm looking at maybe the second tier players and thinking, right, we need to improve there. But if you're going to improve and you're going to bolster the left back position, because I don't think it's worked out so far for Bernabe. I'm like yourself, Kev. I don't want to buy a second choice. I want to buy a first choice.
Aye.
And then you're asking yourself, right, that's unfair on Greg Taylor, but obviously then there's a battle for that jersey. I know that Danielle often on the comment section has commented in relation to Joe Hart, and Danielle would like a new goalkeeper to come in. Jamie Young, Danielle, I've heard you getting frustrated but never angry. We need a new keeper, in all honesty. Joe give me anxiety in games. Yeah, I have had that. We talk about the heart and mouth moments that Joe gives you on a regular basis, Kev. And, it could be the difference between, you're talking about the last 16 of the Champions League. I don't expect us to get there. But on a big occasion in Europe or in a cup final, and it's that tight as it was against AC Milan, where it was nothing each at Celtic Park. We go to the San Siro. You're in extra time, it's nothing each. You cannot have a goalkeeper making a mistake like that. And he's made them. He's made them in Europe. He's made them domestically.
He's made them all during their career, but one thing we can't argue about Joe Hart, and I know where Danielle's coming from, and I know where other people are coming, and I say that as well. Somebody says, what place could you upgrade? I went goalkeeper. And Joe Hart was what we needed when he came in.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
whether he's still what we need now is a question that only Brendan Rodgers can actually answer. And I think, is he what we need now? As I say, my opinion is we will bring in a goalkeeper, but it will mainly be down to Joe Hart's contract situation rather than the desperate thinking of the coaching staff that they need to massively upgrade in that position. It will be down to Joe Hart's contract situation that they're looking at that. That's what I think anyway. That's what I think. And I agree with Danielle's coming from. I do think we can improve in that situation, but I can only project my own thoughts onto what the club will be looking at it. And they will be looking at, he's only got a year left on his contract, and we've got a team of jobbers behind him that are not going to push him. We need to get another one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's the way I look at it.
Listen, it's been one of the days, Kev, where I'm nowhere anywhere near through what I wanted to talk about, and we're over an hour already, and I know you need to nip away. One final comment before you go, though. Again, a wee bit older, I would guess. Great memories of Tea in the Park back in the day. Went to many, many festivals at Tea in the Park, at different venues, of course. And it's been replaced. The Scottish Festival is Transmit now. I've never been. I've got to say, in the 6 years that Transmit's been running, I've never been there. I caught up with some of the footage over the weekend, Kev, but I'm certain Rhiann Downey was on stage with Paul Heaton, a guy who I'd love to interview, actually. He's been on the bucket list for ages. I'd love to interview Paul Heaton. And he introduced Rhiann, as he does with his band members, by stating the football team that they are affiliated to and support. And what a cheer Rhiann got. She's done brilliantly. And by the way, if you do want to watch an acoustic session with Rhiann, she came into the studio, it must have been 2 years ago, Kev.
2 years ago, was I?
And she'd done a brilliant acoustic set. And that was around about the time we had Brooke Coleman here. We had an artist called Sylvie, Mark Sharp and the Bicycle Thieves, Phil Chiarletta, who's playing at King Tut's very, very soon in Glasgow. And the interesting connection between all of these fantastic artists, Kev, is they were all Celtic fans.
It was. I watched Brooke. She was on the highlights as well, and it was great to see Paul Heaton. We'll know with Paul Heaton's politics and allegiances. Well, I think he is probably. He's maybe no ever came out and says that he is a Celtic fan, but I'm sure I have seen him wearing a more than 90 minutes t-shirt.
He's also, he did an interview and he had the Lisbon pennant hanging up
Yes, he
behind him
did.
as
I
well.
mean, he's left leaning. He is going to be naturally attracted to Celtic Football Club, like most left leaning minded guys. But you look like you got a good reaction. I just find transmitting that it's a mixture. It's like a Spotify playlist of. I mean, 1 minute you can be watching Paul Heaton, the next minute you've got some like techno singer on straight after it, or some pop star. Like you can go for Paul Heaton and Niall Horan, and there doesn't seem to be the crowd didn't seem to bother. Right, they didn't say, "Oh, I will watch. We'll sing along to Happy Hour, and now we'll watch Niall Horan," who was
But
also pictured on a Celtic top this weekend.
yeah, so that and I'm pretty sure we had Declan Welsh. I'm sure we had him lined up. I'm sure we did for a session, and obviously we changed our plans with regards to the makeup of the channel. However, the point remains: Rhian Downey's a superstar, as is Bookcombe, and many other young talents coming through. Check them all out on our YouTube channel. If you've enjoyed what you've seen today, give us a thumbs up on the video. It always helps us. Subscribe to the channel if you want to comment. If you want to come and see Acsom live, then this month we will be with Roy Aitken. I'm absolutely delighted to say that, because he's another guy that's a hero of mine from back in the day. And if you want to come along, some tickets are available. The link is underneath this video. Kevin, are you coming to that one? Feed the Bear?
Yes, I will be there.
Superb.
I will be there. It's
Looking
in the
forward to
calendar.
that. Oh, nice one. Nice one. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow. And thank you, Kevin Graham, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.